Welcome to the Art of Listening to Your Body podcast. My name is Jin Ong and I'm your host. I practice as an osteopath and psychosomatic therapist and am fascinated by the mind-body connection and how your physical body is a manifestation of your emotional state. I help people get unstuck from their chronic pain and live the life they want, grounded in values and driven by purpose. My aim is to create awareness to the underlying emotions behind pain, injury, and disease in the body. Join me to learn more about the story of your body, what different issues may indicate, how to release emotions so that you can prevent problems, as well as inspiring pain story interviews. I'm so happy to be bringing a male in the coaching space to you today who speaks the same language and is encouraging more men as well as women to connect with their deeper emotions and expression of their truest selves. Troy McTeer is an illuminator of the mind, working exclusively with anomalistic industry leaders to illuminate the illusion of their minds and unleash their unique master consciousness to become a super creator. Now, there's lots of big words in there. This is possible for everybody, and we're going to break down what each of these mean in the podcast. From a very young age, Troy defied the norm as his rebellious spirit sought out a life on the edge. What is there to gain from colouring inside the lines except for living a painfully slow death? His philosophy purposely confronts his clients with their mortality to spark their very deep desire to live a free life from the madding mediocrity of the masses. True joy and purpose are only activated once you take noble responsibility of who you are in this world and cure the cancer of victim mentality. What quicker way is there to discover yourself other than to accept your physical mortality and revel in this opportunity we call life? Troy does not believe in normal linear systems. Who said life had to be linear? When in Troy's presence, you will learn how to quantum create by becoming the creator of your truth. In Troy's world, magic and miracles are expected, and the only norm there is. This is super creating. Welcome to the podcast, Troy. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jen. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to you sharing your story. So, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what do you do now?
Okay, cool. So I'm from South Africa. I grew up in a very small town in Natal called Escort, and then I moved to an even smaller town called Windhoek in Namibia. So it was a very small town boy, and ended up living in Cape Town from when I was about 17 years old. So that's sort of where I'm from, South Africa. Cool country, a lot of fun. Can get quite exciting here with regards to the party scene, which we'll talk about later, and why I'm here to discuss this pain of addiction and that I've been through, and now I'm currently coaching Anomalies industry leaders to help them illuminate the illusion of their minds, the stories that they create, and then help them break through that to become a super creator. So yeah, that's where I currently am now. Really enjoying it, lots of fun, and quite a stark difference from where I started my career.
Yeah, and you haven't actually been coaching for that long, but you're doing some amazing things. So when did you start your coaching career?
So I started coaching in sort of 2019, July 2019. Yeah, so it's been a very quick, fast journey, and I've stepped into this role of super creator, and now having experienced this myself and these knowings and truths that I've found and discovered, I just want to share this with people who are willing and open to step into this different way of living.
Yeah, because not everyone's ready, right?
No, Jen, people are not ready. They're quite scared because we're very conditioned to believe certain things and the way that the world should be. The world should be linear, apparently. And I don't believe that. I believe that that we can create whatever we want once we illuminate illusions, and own our truth and are truthful to ourselves through brutal honesty and like a noble responsibility. That's a big thing. Taking responsibility for everything in your life, the good and the bad. Once you start to do that, you open yourself up, and the truth. When you start to speak truth, your life speeds up because you don't have to. There's no point hiding things, and you can get to where you want to go faster because everyone understands where you are at and what you're thinking about. So, truth is literally something that I think people. It's so difficult for people to step into truth with small things. I mean, think about white lies people tell. So like I try and ensure that everything I do is truth because I used to lie a lot. I mean, being an addict or an addict in inverted commas, I used to lie a lot. And now I've just
You're a poker player as well. So, and your poker.
Sorry?
Your poker face.
Yes. And, I mean, yeah. And poker. I mean, I played poker for 6 years for a living after my accounting and finance career. I wouldn't say I was pro. I was just making money doing it. I wasn't like a top pro, but I played in Europe, and yeah, I had to definitely lie and influence and manipulate people when I was playing poker, which was a very interesting part of my life.
So would you say because you've been in that position of telling the lies and being able to manipulate people, you can see it from a distance in others?
100%. Playing poker taught me a lot about well, obviously reading people and just really understanding little tells. I mean, and human beings have those too, the way we look, eyes up, eyes down, little twitches in our arms, whatever. So when I'm with clients or with people in my life, you can see it and you call it out. And when you call it out, people are like, holy shit, he sees me. Oh my God, he actually sees me. And they can start a conversation with you. So it definitely was an accelerator to that. But yeah, I've always from a very young age, I haven't really enjoyed people talking or having a front. It was always like my bullshit radar was always up.
Yes, the BS radar.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you a little bit more about the people you work with. You talked about anomalies and then talked about illuminating the mind and taking these quantum leaps. So can you talk about each of those words? Because for some people, they're big words that they don't understand. So what is an anomaly?
Okay, cool. So an anomaly, in my opinion, is a human being who has accomplished something that not many other people have accomplished. Okay, and they're doing things a bit differently, and they're not following the norm. They're not following the normal trajectory of what society has told us. And they've got to a point where they've achieved all this and they're bored because they are anomalies and they need something else, something extra, but they're bored. So I help them get from that point of boredom, right, to illuminate the illusion that this is as far as they can go, and now what's next? Be it a different career, be it a different path, or be it just speeding up that process of where they want to go. So people that really have this serious desire to achieve more, not just financially, in their relationships, in their health, in their life with their kids, everything. It's a holistic approach. So once you get to that level, the anomaly wants to have it all, and we always get taught you can't have it all. But that's a lie. It's an illusion. You can't have it all once you understand how your mind works and once you understand how reality actually works. So that's the anomaly. And then you mentioned the illusion. So this is my favorite, one of my favorite topics. And this is literally, I love going into this because in my opinion, again, everything is an illusion. The whole world that you see is constructed entirely in your mind. And based on what you believe, what you think, what you taught, what you've learned, you will actualize all of that conditioning, and you will notice that in your 3D world. But it's all created in your mind. There's not one single thing that's been man-made that wasn't a thought before you see it. Your computer, your phone, your building, everything was a thought. So we construct our reality completely in our minds, and we create illusions. We create stories about the way things are, or the way things should be. Should I not? Can I? Can't I? Will I? Won't I? They're all illusions. You can do whatever you want when you start to generate these actual beliefs inside of you. So, and more on a science side, on a scientific side, we receive 400 billion bits of information per second through our five senses. Okay? Just our five senses. There may be more. There's a sixth one people talk about, but for this conversation, we'll just talk about this for now. Maybe a seventh one too, if we go really deep. But
I want to know what they are. Go through all the senses, and then we'll go through the bonus sixth and seventh sense.
We'll see. So the five senses receive 400 billion bits of information per second. All right, that gets deleted, distorted, or filtered down to 2,000 bits of information per second. Okay, for us to be aware of consciously. So this is the latest science that we have. It might have been updated, but as far as I know, this is the latest science. Okay, so 2,000 of 400 billion is what we are actually consciously aware of what we can see, of what human beings can pick up. There's other stuff that we can't see: gamma rays, Wi-Fi, X-rays, sonar. We can't hear what dogs can hear. We can't smell what dogs and animals can hear. So there's so much more out there, right? So we only get to see 2,000 bits of that based on our conditioning, what I believe. So my reality is completely different to yours, right? Based on your beliefs and where you were born, where I was born, we all get brought up culturally differently. So we could be looking at the same thing, but interpreting it and have a completely different perception of that based on what we believe. So the same information can be interpreted, or is interpreted, by every single human being completely differently. So we're living in an illusion. So it's your choice to decide what illusion you wanted to live in: one of pain and suffering, which I did for a long time, or one of fun, play, and joy, where you get to create a life that you actually want. And I think that we've all been, and it's through no fault of anyone, but we've all been conditioned and programmed to believing that we need to suffer, like work should be hard, to make money. No, it's bullshit. It's a bullshit story. And when you start to question that, you start to open yourself up and you start to raise your consciousness. And you start to become more aware. And that is the most powerful thing, because illusion is everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere. So illuminating that, and when people understand, they see it, it's like, holy shit, I've been living a lie my entire life. What can I do now? And I've got this far already. Wow, okay. What if you didn't have all this stuff, tarring your experience of life? It's really, really powerful once a human being illuminates their stories.
It is really interesting. I sometimes have these reflective moments where I'm like, gosh, we are just so weird as humans, and we're living on this planet, and the things that we do and the things that we create and the suffering that we create as well. I find it really fascinating.
And we create it all. It's literally like you and I can have the same experience and see it completely differently. I mean, if I walked into a room, or someone walked into a room, and there were five people sitting down at a table, no one says a word. This guy walks into the room and he gives each person $1,000. Each person, each one of those five will react differently. One will say, thank you. One will be like, what do you want from me? Someone else might be, do you think I'm poor? Like, who knows what people are going to think? But it's the same data interpreted differently. So we create these stories in our life no matter what. And it's up to you and us, me, you, and everyone else to go, okay, what do I want this to mean? You choose the meaning. No one else chooses the meaning for you. So any event, a breakup, a divorce, is it the end of a relationship or the beginning of a relationship? A job, is it the end of a job or the start of a new job, start of a new career? Like, you get to play. When you start to play, you change your whole physiological state. And that's where the quality of your life is in your emotional state. If you're in a great emotional state, your life's beautiful. And it doesn't matter if you've got $1 billion or $1, the person in a better emotional state is having a better quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that all the time in the people that I work with their pain, their disease, their injury, or their illness, is that there's all these diagnoses out there, and two people have got the exact same illness or diagnosis or pain or injury, but they respond at complete opposite spectrums of the scale. So I often say there's one person saying they're a 20 out of a 10, and there's another person that's a 1 out of 10. And it all comes back to emotions. So I'd say pain is highly emotional. Your response to it is just a sensation in the body. Yeah, we do have pain receptors, but that is the link that I've noticed is your emotional state is just so key in your ability to recover and your perspective if you do experience something in your body like a disease state that might be chronic.
100%. Emotions for myself, I've experienced not any sort of physical, really like physical stuff, but my emotions caused me to get into a massive depression. It was the way that I was interpreting the world that caused me to get really sick. So I suppose that is really, really sick. I was diagnosed with clinical depression, clinical anxiety, bipolar, which are all lies, all these labels that were put on me. But it was funny, when they told me I was depressed, I got more depressed. I really felt depressed because I started to believe it. Right? The guy in a white suit tells me you're depressed and you need these pills. I got depressed. I couldn't go to, I was at work that day. After that, I could not go back to work. I was depressed because I believed it, because this is what we get taught. We get taught to, we have a construct of what depression is, or what, you'll know in your work of what cancer looks like. If you have cancer, you die. Who said you're going to die? You can come through it. You can come through anything. And I chose in that point to be a victim at that stage of my life and get depressed, and then use drugs to get more depressed. And thought that the drugs would help me, cocaine and weed, and it didn't really. It just made me even more depressed. And then I could actualize and I could tell, yeah, the doctor's right. I'm depressed, So 100, and it was all due to emotional trauma from a young age. But with regards to emotional trauma, it wasn't like something massive happened to me. It was stuff that I figured out later. It was these small little things that just through no fault of anyone, like teachers or parents, whatever. Like, you felt abandoned because your dad didn't come home from work. I don't even know if that was one, but this is what I see a lot of my clients. There's not, and these micro traumas are the root of what you experience later in your life, and that was really insightful. So that emotional pain, if left unchecked, and human beings don't have ways of coping with emotions because we're not taught in school.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I like to use the phrase processing emotions rather than coping. I don't think we should cope with emotions.
I like that. What about integrating? Do you like integrating rather than processing?
Yeah, integrating sounds good too. It's like, when people work with us and they process those emotions and they become vulnerable, it's all about how do you integrate it into day-to-day life, not just for the 12-week period or the year long that you work with a coach, or the one day.
For sure, yeah.
Can
Definitely
I
integrate, yeah.
Oh no, I am just caught up on these sixth and seventh senses. So before we go into your story, because it is definitely a big part of this, can you just go through what are the five senses to recap for people?
The five senses.
Yeah, I know they're basic.
Good today. This is sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. I think that was right.
Yeah, great. And then so they're the five senses that you talked about where we're receiving messages on the constant. And what is the sixth sense?
I'd say the sixth is intuition, just a real gut feel, or a knowing from your heart. And the seventh is a sense that you get when you start to get into playing with the quantum field and understanding what you can feel and see and create from there. And that's a whole another level of creation, but sensing at the same time, because you're sensing what this feels like before it occurs, and you experiencing that feeling before it occurs. So I'd say those two.
Okay, great. And quantum, that's a big word for a lot of people as well. So can you describe what a quantum leap is? And that's probably more from your experience working with clients. And then we'll go into your story.
Yeah, for sure. So quantum. So let's give you an example. So quantum is a big word essentially for, I mean, and quantum physics is the most, it's the best science that we currently have. I mean, it's been around since, I think, the 1880s, 1890s, maybe before then, not too sure. And what it is basically the study of subatomic particles at its like a root sort of clinical level. But as you get into it, it's the field of possibility that we can't see. And just because it's invisible doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? They've proved this now in science, that it does exist. So the quantum field is just the bridge between your inner and outer world, essentially. And it's a container for all things. The whole world is in this quantum field. We think that space is empty, like air is empty, but it's not. There's this field inside it, and it's the container for everything inside of us. So it's the bridge between our outer and inner world. So whatever we feel, we think about will be created in the 3D world. Whatever you think about it beyond space and time, you can create in the space and time. So that's like a bit of clinical, might be a bit boring for some people, but the understanding of what a quantum leap is, or quantum creation within clients and stories that we've gotten, is when someone comes to you and they are suicidal. Like I've got a few clients, well, I've had a few clients in the past when I first started working who come to me suicidal, using drugs, didn't know what they're going to do, completely, like, what's the point of life? And within 3 days after healing this emotional trauma and pain, 3 days, hey, like they've been going to psychologists for years, 3 days, understanding what the root cause is, back at work, new jobs, left that job, enjoying their life. Like that to me is a quantum leap. Or clients coming to me and they've got issues at work, and they don't even mention the issues with their wives or their husbands. And after 2 days, they are back having sex after not having sex for 6 months, or like once every 4 weeks. I mean, that sounds like a chore. And I've been there too myself. I think people have all been in relationships, and it's about owning that truth and going, okay, why is that happening? So things like that you can't explain, you don't know what it is, but when you start to raise your level of consciousness and you heal this emotional trauma, everything in every other area of your life just starts to quantum leap, and you can create what you want because your energy is not sucked away. It's all that energy. Your energy is stuck in this emotion. You know this well. And once you release that, you've got more energy to create, right? And then you can put that into play with whatever you want. It's malleable, this reality we think is so fixed. It's completely malleable.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it? And I know that when a lot of people work with me, they're just like, oh, I had no idea that this is what I was in for. And in the early days, there's often a lot of tension around relationships, and like, I'm meant to be working on myself. I'm like, yeah, but when you work on yourself and you change that expression of yourself, things are going to drop away, things are going to be challenged, and new things are going to come into your life. So it is, as you say, that quantum is seeing the possibility. And it is so nice to see those key milestones that people reach throughout their journey when they're being coached on a much deeper level, and one that takes into all aspects of life into consideration.
It's the craziest thing, because we get taught that life is going to be this way. Like, I am forever doomed to have a bad relationship or have a bad job, or this is how I am. I'm going to be fat for forever. I'm just this, or I'm angry. And once you go into this emotional stuff and it starts to integrate or heal, or whatever you want to call it, and they work on themselves, everyone around them changes all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it's not about anyone else, it's about them. And once they start to look at their own stuff and take noble responsibility and become very truthful about who they are in the world, and they step out of a victim mentality, which is where I was for most of my life. So I did it myself first, and then I was like, okay, how do I help other people go through this? And it's really fulfilling, as you know as well, sure.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about conditioning based on where we grow up, and the stories that I hear about South Africa is that people are getting murdered all the time.
Tell me the stories you asked. I saw people in Australia saying that we get like exiles, or we'd be able to get refugee status, or the farmers here, which was quite cool. But yeah, it's a serious problem that people don't really take seriously here. It's a massive problem. Yeah, the government doesn't really take it seriously. They've got other things going on. I mean, there's more people dying here of murder today than COVID, and COVID's taking precedence, and that's been like this for a long time. So they gave, I mean, I don't want to go too political here, but if they gave as much attention to murder as they gave to COVID, we might have a better country to live in. But it's a beautiful place. But there are murders, a lot of murders.
Yeah. So let's go into your story. Before you were this coach that was helping everyone illuminate their mind, who were you?
Jin. Okay, so I was a little rebel. I didn't enjoy school. I didn't like the authority. I hated authority. I didn't understand why I had to listen to someone who was teaching me to regurgitate what they were telling me on a piece of paper. I didn't understand why I had to listen to a bell when it rang, and then move across. And we were conditioned the entire time. So yeah, I wouldn't say I was a troublemaker, but I liked to push the boundaries to see what I suppose we all do as kids. But yeah, I did rebel from a very young age. And I went to school very young. So I finished school when I was 17 years old, and I tried cocaine and ecstasy when I was 15 years old. Didn't really continue much in school, just tried it for like 3-6 months, which is still quite hectic if you think about a child that isn't fully developed yet, a little boy at 15 years old. And then I was told and conditioned again that, if you want to, live a good life. Well, at 16 years old, let me tell you this story. I asked my parents at the lunch table, what's this life thing about? Like, do I just go to school, get good grades, then go to university and get a good degree, then go to good corporate, get a good job and climb the corporate ladder, make enough money that I can go to maybe one overseas holiday a year, and then have some kids, and then, have some kids with my wife, get married as well, send my kids to school, right? Maybe make some more money, maybe go on 2 holidays a year, who knows, but have to put in leave. I was like, Dad, you have to put in leave. Like, what is this? You have to ask for leave. Like, I don't really get that. And then do that over again and over again. And my kids grow up and then I die. And they're like, yeah, it's pretty much life. And I was like, I'm fucking out of this game, Paul. This is not for me. So anyway, this is what I thought. And what did I do? I went to university. I studied accounts, finance, because that was the thing to do. It was you could get a secure job. You'd make good money. People would. It was a status thing as well. Oh, the University of Cape Town, which is a very prestigious very prestigious university in South Africa. So went there and didn't enjoy it at all. And when I was doing my honors, I decided to play some poker. So I started playing poker because I realized that I was going to make very little money as an article clerk. So played some poker and then realized when I was doing my article clerks or my training as an accountant, 6 months in, this was not for me because I was making zero money. I was making way more money playing poker. So I resigned from my job, to the absolute disgust and dismay of my parents and those around me who were at university with me. But I did not care. At this point, I just did not care. And I was like,
did they know that you played poker?
They did know that I played poker, but they didn't know that I was going to leave a chartered accounting qualification to go play poker. Which is quite a bit, but yeah, it was just like, that was the first time that I decided to sort of like, enough's enough. I don't agree with this. I wasn't having fun. I was depressed then at this job, accounting. I was ticking with blue and red pen after studying for years, like one of the hardest, apparently the hardest degrees that you can get. It's just regurgitation really as well.
Did you know that you were depressed at this time?
I don't think I knew that I was depressed. Looking back now, I do. I had a mild state of dysthymia, they call it, these diagnoses and labels that they give you. Dysthymia, which is like this constant state of depression. Which I was drinking a lot, using a lot of drugs, and I didn't really enjoy it. So I decided, well, let me play some poker. I enjoyed that. It was fun because it was exhilarating, and I was doing what I wanted to do for the first time in my life. First time in my life, I decided this is what I'm doing, and from there, after poker, I moved to Europe for a year to go play poker. It was wild. Eh? It was a whole different ball game, different hours, a lot of partying, a lot of it's literally like no respect for your body or what you're eating or anything. So I was literally completely neglecting myself because I didn't know what I wanted to do as well. And then when I got back to Cape Town, 2011, I just completely decided to go all in the party scene in Cape Town, and I got really deep into the drug scene. I was probably using cocaine 4 times a week, which was quite severe. But I was never an addict per se, where because I don't like that term, that label. No one's an addict. I think you choose it, and then if you believe that you're an addict, you will become an addict, unless there are some physical addictions like you get with heroin and that. But for me personally, cocaine, I wasn't physically addicted. My cells didn't need it. I just needed it for my own confidence and my insecurities.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
what did the cocaine do for you? Why did you go for cocaine?
So for me, it was a status thing. I was very insecure. I didn't know who the fuck I was. I had no idea who I was, and it gave me a sense of people wanting me, because everyone knew that Troy had the cocaine. And Troy would have the house parties afterwards at his house.
Were you a dealer?
No, I wasn't a dealer. No, I never dealt. But I always make sure that I had, because there was my connection to people. Like, I was so disconnected from myself that the cocaine gave me this connection to myself, and that people were interested in me, right? Although people were interested in me, and I had great friends, but it was like it was me getting approval, essentially. Human beings love approval, right? We need approval, and I never felt that I had approval in my life, because I was always doing things differently. But for the first time, I had this approval, and still just got too much. And after a year, I left Cape Town actually to move to Joburg. But it was for confidence and to numb my insecurities.
Because my view on people that take the drugs and alcohol, and I know you relate to this to a degree, is that it is a way of numbing out. But then something like cocaine or alcohol can just help someone lose those inhibitions and exude the confidence that they actually truly desire. So did it actually just make you more of who you really wanted to be, but the drug was the excuse?
Well, that's a nice question. It made me maybe not more of who I wanted to be, but it made me say the things I wanted to say, and make the jokes that I wanted to make, and just be carefree without having this limitation of who I should be in society, and the expectations that people placed onto me for who I should be. Who came up with this idea of we should be what someone else thinks? Like, you should be who the fuck you are. Like, people are looking for purpose and joy, but they don't know, they're not going to find it until they find themselves. And there's no place to look for yourself other than inside of you. So once you find out who you are, it was easy for me to stop using drugs once I realized who I was, and I had a vision for my future. So because I also didn't have a vision for my future, which was the most powerful thing, and that's why I was depressed. That's why I got to a suicidal place.
Okay, so you moved to Johannesburg.
Oh yeah. So moved to Johannesburg to do property. So now I had to go back into something that was, legitimate. So I got into property and commercial industrial property. Had a great time. Also didn't enjoy it though, and that culture was also fast paced. Like, do deals, party hard, and up to a point where I just got myself into massive depression. And at one point, I remember thinking about killing myself. This was before I went into treatment, and I was like, "What the hell are you actually thinking about?" But it was so deep that I'd never thought about that as an option ever in my life. But it just came over me one day, and that was one of the scariest times of my life, because once I thought about it once, that thought came into my mind a few times until it became an ideation of, okay, how am I going to do this? How would it happen? Because I felt like I was a burden on my fiance, on my family, on people around me, on my colleagues at work, and I didn't enjoy what I was doing. I was so far off from who I was. The only thing I could do was continue drinking and using coke, because that was the only thing that gave me any respite from this. Yeah, you essentially hate yourself so much for not being you, that anything that, like the coke and the booze, was just helping me feel semi-normal again in my mind for that time. And then the next day I feel even worse. I mean, the anxiety the next day was terrible. So then I'd smoke weed to not feel anxious. And the cycle just continued. Can
you talk a bit more about the depression and how that felt? How did that manifest in your daily life for you? What was your behavior like, your sleeping habits?
So the depression for me, I was snappy. I was very, very snappy. I was lethargic. I would go to work, but I would do nothing at work. I would do absolutely nothing. And I was a complete victim. I was like, everyone else should be doing stuff for me. I couldn't understand why I wasn't doing deals, even though I was probably working 3.5 days a week, as most of us were in the property industry, because we just partied on Thursday and Fridays. And so the depression manifested in me almost getting so far away from the people that I worked with that it became a problem, where they were like, okay, Troy, I think you got to go type thing. Although they never said that, but it was this undercurrent of, your energy here is just so bad. And this is a property, this is a very 3D world company, right? Like when they say your vibe is off, then you got to know. So it manifested in me losing friends. It manifested in me not really having anyone except for my fiance, and she actually went traveling for 2 years. She's a bit younger than me, so she went traveling, and that was also added to that depression. Like, I'm not good enough, like she's now left me. So all these little things happened, but I was a complete victim, and I take responsibility for it now. But in that moment, I couldn't see a way out. It was the darkest time of my life. Probably for 3 years I was in this state, and I only realized that I was really in the state when I had these suicidal ideations.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the suicidal ideations, you started thinking about, well, how am I actually going to do it? And what stopped you?
So what stopped me? I'll tell you the exact story. So I came back from a meeting with my coach / psychologist, and she told me that I needed to go to treatment.
How did you start the journey of reaching out to a coach or psychologist?
I was seeing her for about 2 years, 2-3 years. I started when I wasn't sure about what I wanted to do with regards to property, if I wanted to change companies. So I went to go see her to see if I should change companies, and then she dug deeper to figure out what was actually going on. So that's how I eventually went to her, and then I went on a whole journey with her. And she then said to me, Troy, listen, you are clinical. You need to go in for treatment for depression. And I said, okay, cool. She's like, and you have to go for drugs and booze. I'm like, I don't have an alcohol problem or a drug problem. And she's like, okay, well, just go for depression then. So then I was like, this is absolute crap. Like, I'm not depressed. And I got in my car, I drove back home, and I remember some guy, a driver in front of me cut me off. And I got so angry and so hateful with rage that I went in front of him and pulled my car in front of him, I was done. I was like, I don't care if this guy shoots me, he shoots me. Because in South Africa, if you have road rage, guys have guns here, you know. So you never know. Someone might just pull out a gun, wrong day, wrong person, and shoot you. And I got out of the car, went up to him, and he was swearing at me. I was swearing at him, and he said, "Come." And I looked and I stopped and myself, and I was like, okay. I got back in the car, drove, got to my apartment or my home, and I sat in the car and I was like, okay, how am I going to kill myself now? Because now I felt guilty about how I behaved, and then all these other emotions came up. So I was like, yo, I'm not worth it. I'm not good enough. I'm causing pain for my family, causing pain for my fiance. It'll be easier if I'm not here, which I think I've heard quite a few people who go into suicidal ideation have these thoughts of, it'll be easier if I'm not here. And that's a very selfish thing to think. Like, when you go, people will miss you. And so yeah, and in the car, sort of thinking about, getting a gun and killing myself. And at that point, I was like, okay, I went inside, spoke to my fiance. I said, I've got to go to treatment. And I was in treatment that afternoon. Went straight in.
I'm curious, did your fiance ever pull you up on your behavior?
So we would use together, and we were like a little team. Like, we used to party together. It was fun. It was fun at the start, you know. It was never bad. But as we didn't have a vision for what we were doing, we were engaged, and we just bought a home, and it was now time to sort of start living life. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really doing well financially, and I wanted more, and I felt demasculinated because how was I going to support her? And I wanted to have a family, and all this crap goes on in your mind, and stories. It's this illusion that I started creating for myself. It got worse and worse and worse. And her and I discussed that that day after I came in, we discussed that. We were like, it's time to go. So she went to treatment as well. We decided that if this was going to work, and if we did want to get married, it was time for both of us to go into treatment. So she had more of an alcohol. Sorry?
Or go your separate ways.
Yeah, it was that. And we both decided, okay, we started like a 3-hour conversation going, okay, well, what do we actually want? Like, we want each other, and this is not worth it. So I'm not going to lose you for this shit, you know? So yeah, and then I went into the treatment center, and I remember lying on the floor in a complete panic attack. Like, I thought I was going to die. Like, I literally came close to, I thought I was going to die. Couldn't breathe at all, shaking, screaming for the nurses. And I remember them flipping me over and giving me an injection in my bum, an Ativan injection, which completely calmed me down. But I remember lying on the floor after I got it, like shirt off, sweating, looking at like a hospital floor, essentially, looking up, going, how the fuck did I get here? Like, I had everything at my fingertips, and I created this whole mess in myself because of all these stories that I told myself. And that was the moment that I was like, never again. My life is changing. When I was on that floor looking up these nurses.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure there's more. Can I just ask about the process of checking yourself into a clinic? Do you go to a doctor, or do you just walk up to one of these clinics and say, I need help?
No, so I just phoned them. I said, listen, do you have space? And they said, yeah. They phone your insurance and they get you in.
Right. And how long were you there for?
I was there for 3 weeks. It was the most ridiculous 3 weeks of my life. I've never ever. It was terrible. Like, it was like a mini prison. You got your pills. You had to walk up there, get your pills, and there was like a courtyard in the center. You couldn't go outside because people would escape to go buy drugs. Yeah. So it was a really, really humbling experience of my life. I was with people in the same room as me who came from a completely different background to me, with the nicest human beings in the world. And I looked at them and like they came from nothing, and I came from a privileged background. And I completely thrown it away. And in that treatment center, I started helping people as well. I was like, fuck, I'm helping people here. I mean, help yourself first, Troy. And from there, I started to it was a very humbling experience, Jen. Like I'm thinking about it now. It was like it's quite emotional thinking about it again, because it was a really humbling experience, and to sort of be there in that space and understand, cool, I did this to myself, and because I did to myself, I can get myself out of it. And that's what I did.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, when I work with people and they say, I'm feeling emotional now, because you were saying to me that you haven't actually really spoken about this since it all happened a couple of years ago. Where do you feel this in your body when you say I feel emotional thinking about this?
In my chest.
Okay. And can you take us through what else happened while you were in this clinic?
What else happened?
Yeah.
Do you want some wild stories about other people or about me? About me.
About you, and you can throw in those other
Yeah.
ones as well, just your experience, because I think there is, well, stigma with being diagnosed with depression, suicidal ideation, and then the stigma of I was in a clinic for treatment.
Yeah. That was a huge thing for me, which was a massive hit to my ego. Going, cool, I went to treatment. Like I always used to say when we were partying, like, rehabs for quitters, guys. Like, come on, like it was a whole thing. Like we had one or two friends that had gone into rehab, but no one really spoke about it. And I was the first one that came and spoke about it, because I was like, this is not, it can't be a stigma. Like, if you have these problems and it gets that bad, right? If it gets that bad and you at that point go into treatment and get what you need. But the treatment center itself, obviously, they only have about a 3 or 4% non-return rate. So, or whatever that's called, not too sure. I said the wrong term there, but 3 or 4% of people don't come back. The other 96, 97% come back. So,
Yeah.
and that's I think average in the whole world, right? So there were some really good people there. I was well looked after. We had sessions every single day, cognitive behavioral therapy, like CBT and that.
Individually or as a group?
No, group. It was all group, and then you would see your psychiatrist and your psychologist once or twice a week. So see them 6 times, and they would assess you and see what's going on. Psychiatrists would just up your pills or down your pills. So the whole thing was trying to get less pills, because we walked around like zombies in there. Like we were complete. Like I was completely drugged up to the point of having hallucinations. So understanding about meds as well. When I was in there, I was like, I do not want to be on meds at all ever again. And I'm not on meds. I came off all my meds after a year of being in there. But your experience inside there, I'm trying to think, what are you looking for exactly? I can give you a bit more.
Whatever you want to talk about. I'm just curious.
Okay, cool. There was a couple of guys in there that would his name was Rasta, I remember. It's funny, this is a nickname. And he was a heroin addict, and he was really struggling, like properly struggling. And he escaped the one day. So we had to lock down the whole place and do like a head count and check who else was gone. And he'd gone away, and he'd found drugs, but they didn't find the drugs on him. He'd hidden them somewhere. They didn't search him properly. And that night I came out and I saw them smoking some heroin in a rehab, which was quite a ironic thing to see. But other than that, the experience was literally, to be honest with you, I can't remember the entire experience because I was so drugged up. But literally just waking up, showering, getting your pills, getting your blood pressure done, getting an EEG done, ECG done, all the tests, checking your brain, checking your liver, your kidneys, everything. They checked everything to make sure that you were healthy, and there weren't any sort of problems ongoing. And then we had like play therapy. It was quite interesting. We literally had to draw. We went back to children, like drawing and playing with Play-Doh and making necklaces, which was quite fun. Actually, I loved it. It was cool.
Oh, it is great. We've got a play therapist in town, and I refer a lot of kids to her, and the adults often end up seeing her. And it's just this, well, it shouldn't be a strange concept, should it? Play.
It shouldn't. Play is what we need to lean into as adults. everyone that starts to play, I mean, you know this as well, like as soon as we start to play, we reconnect with that child, and that child, our default state is joy. It's not a balanced state. Our default state is joy, and we start to enjoy our lives more. All this shit goes away, the strife and the pain and the struggle, and people might not like what I'm saying, but like, you get to decide if you have a joyful day or you have a shit day. You decide it. That's the thing. Anything can happen, like, but you decide how you react or how you respond to that thing. And once you lean into joy, your life becomes more fun, and you might as well enjoy your life because you're going to die.
Yes. Oh, we're probably going to touch more on this death thing in a minute. We've just been away for 4 days for a bit of a city break, and on the way home last night we were driving and asked Violet, my 6-year-old, well, Gav asked Violet, what's most important to you, play, eating, or sleep? And she goes, do I have to pick one? Can we prioritize them? And she picked play first, then eating, and then sleep.
I think I'll go the same route.
Yes. Okay, so when you get released from the centre, do you check yourself out, or do they say you're ready to be released to the world?
So you get 3 weeks that you have to be there, and then they assess you to see if you have to go to a secondary facility or you stay there for a bit longer. But
do you feel ready for the world?
Yeah, so you literally do everything you can to make sure you can get out. So I was on my best behavior then. I'll tell you right now, way better than school.
Did your parents know that you were checking yourself into a centre?
Yeah, I phoned them after I discussed it with my fiance Tam. And they were like, they were shocked because they had no idea, or they had suspicions that I was using drugs, but then they found out. And I had to write a life story in there, actually. And when I came out, I decided, I was like, well, you know what? No more lies, no more anything. And I wrote, it was deep. It was everything that I've gone through. Like everything with the drugs, like how much I was using, when I was using, who I was using with, the sexual escapades. And I gave it to them, and I went out to an NA meeting. And I was like, fuck, okay, this is done, whatever. And I came back, and it was quite freeing because I had nothing more to hide from them. And, when you are using drugs and that, and you start lying about, you need assistance with this or assistance with that from your parents, and you use the money for drugs, potentially, there's a lot of guilt. So I've had to work through that guilt as well. But it's nice to know that they know everything about me.
Yeah. That's interesting. So were you asking them for money to fund your drug habit?
Yeah, well, I was using my money for drugs, and then I would need money to sort of survive, because I spent all the money that I made from poker on partying. Didn't lose, because I was a very profitable poker player. I did invest a little bit, but wanted to live the high life and thought I could just keep on doing it. So yeah, I did have to borrow money from them. And
what did you tell them?
Found out that drugs. Oh, it's what did I actually say? I said, listen, I'm just, my salary is not covering what my living expenses are. And they were very kind. They said, okay, cool. There was no questioning or anything like that. So which was bad, which was rough, and those were the lies that I would tell. And I was like, I'm never lying again. Like, once I showed them that book of my whole story, it was all out in the open. So I don't need more to hide. And now I live by this truth, because it set me, like everyone says, truth sets you free. Truth saves you time. Truth saves you time. That's the truth about truth. It saves you time, and then you get to create the time. Everyone says there is no time. Like, we do create it. We create it in our mind as a construct. By telling the truth to anyone in your life, just tell the truth, and you save time, the hassle and the energy of thinking about the next lie. Just cut it all out. And that's been a massive shift for me in my life with people. If people are talking crap that I don't want to hear, I'll say, listen, I don't need to hear about that. You start to get sovereign. Start to know who you are, and you decide what you want, and you're not afraid to tell people the truth, because you're helping yourself and you're helping them, to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. I'm just curious, because I know some of the people that I work with as well is that they have, I guess, their teenage children, but also their adult children who are in deep, dark places, either with depression or suicidal thoughts, eating disorders, drug addiction. I don't know if I mentioned that, but they have trouble letting go. And it's almost like they support that. Can you speak into that a little bit? Because I guess your parents were very supportive, but they didn't have to cut any ties with you.
Well, it's enabling, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have to cut any ties with me, but but I think deep down they knew something. But you could like for them, I don't know how certain other parents are. They sort of had a blind eye, and they were just like, all right, we'll just make sure that he's okay and he's surviving. Purely out of love. It's not. But once you understand, once then, if they understood them, or if they knew completely, they probably would have had a different outlook, and maybe they just didn't want to see. I don't know. I've never asked them specifically. Or my mom said that she had an inclination, but she didn't go deeper into it to dive a bit deeper. But those people, when you said that disconnecting from them, what did you mean? Just so I can answer that properly.
I guess when I work with people, I say, look, you've got to make that decision whether or not you keep on supporting them. Like, that money is going towards drugs or alcohol or whatever. But actually, yeah, they're in a pretty bad place, but maybe they haven't reached their darkest point to result in that that massive turnaround, that pivotal point. However, it can go either way, which is why I think people get scared. It's like, well, okay, if I step away from that person, maybe they will suicide. So, the story of like the relationship, and one of the partners, like the boyfriend, says, if you leave me, I'm going to suicide. So do you stay with them or do you step away? And maybe then they realize, okay, like you had that moment in time on the hospital floor where you realize that you had created everything and that you can change your life. But the risk is that person does tip the other way, but it's exhausting for the parent or the friend or the partner to keep on supporting this. And this is where I talk about, well, you need to take responsibility for the decision that you made and not have regrets if it does go the other way.
I think that's probably one of the hardest decisions for a parents, because as well, that person, if they're getting the money from parents or family or whatever, or friends even maybe, or uncles or aunts, whatever it is, that person knows that if they stop giving them the money, like this is now we're talking deep, deep addiction here. Okay, they'll find the money somewhere, right? They'll prostitute or they'll steal or whatever they're going to do. So the family will be like, we don't want them to do that. So they're caught in a very tough position. So until that human being decides to take responsibility, there's actually nothing that they can do. And they've got to decide. I think that's an individual choice. I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer. I think it's a very tough place to be. And I thank God that I wasn't that far down into a physical addiction or physiological addiction.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just wanted your point of view. And yeah, I know it's probably like a topic all on its own and there's different perspectives. But the good thing that you said, well, which I agree with, is that sometimes, people just aren't ready. They have to be ready when they are.
100%. Like there's nothing, like no one can take responsibility for you. Like you can't take any responsibility for me, and I can't take any responsibility for you. And once we do take responsibility for ourselves, life changes and you start to see things that weren't there before. The illusion expands.
Yeah. So you got out, and then what did you do with your life? Did you go back into property, real estate?
No, I got out and I went straight into learning about my mind. I was like, I need to figure out if my mind was so negative and it got me to this dark place, what's possible if I learn how to shift my mind into a positive state? I want to talk about positive thinking. I'm talking about embodiment of this feeling, because positive thinking does not work if you've got these tarred intentions and beliefs behind yourself.
Absolutely. I agree with that so much. And I unfortunately see a lot of people who are just teaching people positive affirmations, and it's like, Yeah. And I say, if the positive affirmations aren't working for you, you've got to do the deeper work and then come back to the positive affirmations when you're actually ready to really believe it and embody it, as you say.
100%. It's so funny. This affirmations, people are like, oh, just do affirmations, but you still don't believe that you can do this. So it's not going to happen. And the belief is everything. Like in the science of belief, Bruce Lipton wrote that book, the biology of belief. Like that book is so powerful. And once you understand that, you can understand that affirmations don't work. The law of attraction doesn't work either unless you actually have done the work before. You can only attract with the energy that you have. If you don't believe that you're going to, and people like, I'm manifesting these. Yeah, I'm not going to go into this, but people are like, I'm manifesting. Like, what are you actually manifesting? You just decide that. Cool. Understand that your energy might be a bit off, and you've got to do a bit of a deeper dive into why. Or I manifested this, but I'm not going to. But it's taking me so long to manifest this other thing. Well, why? You've got to understand why. Like, it works. It's in the quantum field. It's possibilities. Yes, you can manifest anything, but you need to do the work first.
Yeah. It's a little bit like meditation as well. I've had quite a few people say to me, yeah, my partner meditates, but then it's all out the window when they just lose it. And it's like, well, yeah, the meditation isn't like the be all and end all.
No, the meditation is also not going to work unless you actually, embody that throughout your day as well. And you can meditate during the day. It's not just like 10 minutes in the morning and, now you're fine. There's a lot of stuff behind it. There's always depth to every topic. And when you start to explore those topics, you'll find out so much. So any topics that anyone's heard on this today, explore them and see for yourself, because don't take my word for it. Don't take Jen's word for it. Explore yourself. And once you start to learn and adopt, you'll integrate it and you'll start to see those for yourself.
Yeah. And there is no one size fits all. You've just got to give it a go and see if it works for you. And there's so many styles, like there's so many diseases out there. There's so many styles of meditation out there. You've just got to try it out and see which style works for you. So many different coaches out there, and you've got to find the person that matches.
Exactly. And you got to ask questions. As I think that the world has stopped asking questions. Like, don't just believe what people say. Don't believe me. Like, ask questions. Like, I love when people question me. I love when people give me backlash. Like, it's fine. It's good. Let's start a conversation, and let's not cling to our opinions as a truth. I'm willing to change my mind about anything that I've said. If I am presented with more information that helps me make a better decision, because I want to grow. So as you learn things, ask questions, and you'll find out more interesting things about it, and see if it's true for you.
Yeah. And I like that you're up for a challenge, or people to question what you're doing, because a lot of people would stop speaking their truth and voicing their opinions for fear of the criticism and judgment or someone challenging them. And I'm like, well, this is an opportunity for you to educate and to share why you do this work or why you stand for that opinion. And it's a really nice place to be when you don't get triggered, but you see the opportunity to share more.
It's a beautiful place to be. I mean, I used to get triggered a lot, like all the time. I had some serious anger issues, and understand. And once I ask questions about how you actually integrate this stuff, or these emotions, right? And you can not get triggered, and have a conversation with someone. It's a lot of fun, but you can't always have a conversation with someone that is getting triggered because they're unresourceful, right? So you got to pick who you talk to, or not pick who you talk to, but pick how you respond to different people. Like, there's no point trying to convince someone, and no one should be trying to convince anyone else. And no one should be giving advice as well, because our advice is based on our own beliefs and our own conditioning. So even when you give people, and this is like strategic business advice, for sure it makes sense, but in your life, like telling you how you should behave or think or talk or show up, I don't think any person should be giving someone else any advice. But it's a conversation to be had between two people that are willing enough to be mature enough and open enough to have a conscious conversation about any topic in the world. Like, we should be able to discuss right and left political views openly without, let's not go there. But that's how it should be, to like learn and grow.
Yeah. I just keep on thinking of your road rage. It's like, imagine if that guy just turned around and tried to counsel you in your road rage. You would not have been able to hear it at all.
No,
And
it's 100. Imagine, hey, what's coming up for you now? No, thank you.
yeah, so
There's
I
no
talked
point.
about road rage on another podcast as well. And my response to road rage when I see it, and if I'm ever in the car with someone that has road rage, I'm like, oh my God, you're just such a dick. Like, why are you responding like this? You're a dick, but I do have compassion that maybe you've got some stuff going on in your life, and this is why it's manifesting as road rage. But I know a lot of people take offense to road rage, and then, you know, they get the emotional, the physiological, the physical reaction within them, because all of a sudden they question, like, did I do something wrong? But then they can't stop thinking about this person that just ranted and raved at them, or even just like shook their fist in the window. Um, oh gosh, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So for if you get triggered by that person who has road rage, just think, okay, that person has probably got a lot worse issues than what you do. So don't take on that energy.
For sure. It makes sense. Also, if we're getting triggered, I think we ought to do work. As soon as you get triggered, ask yourself why.
Yeah.
This is like as soon as you get triggered, like what is that? Like why? Like what's going on? And that's the introspection that you get to do. And people don't do this, but when you start to do it and not just let those emotions come over you, like you start to figure out the deeper meaning behind what's actually going on inside of you, and you get to know yourself a bit better, and you
Yeah.
can integrate that stuff to not be triggered next time. And when you stop being triggered, guess what? Your life becomes joyful.
Yes. Okay, tell me more. Anything
About
you think
what?
I've missed?
Okay, so emotional like triggers, right?
Or
When you
anything. It
get
doesn't have to
triggered,
be about triggers, but I
you
like
know,
to.
I'm gonna go. So triggers. Like everyone has this fucking word these days.
Yeah.
Trigger. Right? Or any emotional reaction is called that. Any emotional reaction that you have, and if you're living your life like I was in a victim mentality, moaning and complaining and blaming and all this crap that's not true, it's an illusion. Just remember that we are all going to die human beings, and we're on this earth for a very, very short time. We've been around for 200,000 years, human beings before present, um, and we on the earth for 80 to 100 years, right? That's what we believe we will be. So we will manifest that. We could believe that we live to 200 years and everyone starts living to 200 years. Who knows? Like it's just a belief, okay? But we're here for a very short period of time, okay? And you get to ask yourself, well, I get to ask myself now every single day, like, if I had a week left to live, what would I want to be doing? How would I want to be feeling? How would I want to be thinking? Who would I want around me? How would I be treating those people around me? What work would I truly want to be doing if I had a week left to live? And when I ask myself, like I see death as the greatest gift that we could ever have, because without death, we could never live. Okay, and death is just another experience. This right now, this podcast is just an experience,
Mm.
right? Everything I do is an experience. Driving my car is an experience. I get to do this now, and this now, and this now. And when death comes, death is just an experience. We shouldn't fear death. We should embrace death and actually go towards the pleasure of death, because it's a privilege to die. Because without death, how would we ever know life? So this emotional shit that we go through and that we dive into, and I know, I know, I've been there. And I look back and I go, holy shit, I wish I'd actually understood this deeper back then. But actually I don't, because it's a beautiful journey that I've created and gone through. And how do you want to spend your life? And the fear of death is actually, see it as the joy of death, and just reframe it, because it's just someone told you maybe dying is scary, like what it's going to feel like. But if you're scared of dying, do some research on near death experiences, and they all have similar experiences. And
Yes.
it doesn't seem scary at all. It seems fucking joyful.
Yeah, there's a Netflix series out, and I just watched it the other day, and I found it fascinating. People recounting their near-death experiences and the realms that they went into. And there was an orthopedic surgeon who it's opened her mind. And I guess now she lives a completely different life. And it was really interesting because when she was having her near-death experience, she was submerged by the water in a kayaking accident for 30 minutes. So she should be dead. She should be a vegetable now, but she's actually back doing spinal surgery. And she got this interesting message that her son wasn't going to live much past the age of 18. And, you know, unfortunately, she lived every day going, is this the day? Is this the day? And then he got to 18 and she kind of breathed a sigh of relief. And then a couple of days after his 18th birthday, he was hit and killed by a car.
Wow.
So
really?
Yeah, just those kind of experiences. And she said, and I think there's groups for people to talk about this because it's not widely accepted. And I think that we should just go around with an open mind, because sometimes our clients tell us really strange things. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to discount it. That's your experience.
There's something like if you look at like I've researched near-death experiences for a while, like, and countless cases, and they're all very similar. And you are consciousness. Like people say, like my leg, who's the my behind the leg? Like who's this my? Like my arm, my body. Like who's the my? Isn't it just body? Like you know. So who's the my? Your my is the consciousness. Is your consciousness inside your. Well, we don't really know where it is. It could be outside of us or inside of us. Don't know. We're still sort of working it out. But it's consciousness. Okay, we go deep here, but it's you are consciousness. Like you are like you are conscious, and that consciousness is energy, and energy cannot be created or nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. So if you're worried about death, just know that your consciousness doesn't die. Your physical body dies, right? Wherever that consciousness goes on, cool. Like this is my belief from what I've studied. I'm not saying it's true or not because I've got no idea of knowing if it's true or not. But it's an attitude that empowers me, so I get to choose that attitude and I get to have fun with it. Yeah. And you get to choose the attitude. You like everyone gets to choose their attitude, and if you have one that's scary for death, well, and you enjoy it, keep it. But if you don't enjoy it, try something new, creative. And come out of that illusion into a new illusion. It's beautiful. You get to create new illusions all the time.
So if you had a week left to live, would you be happy with how you lived your life?
How I've lived my entire life.
And what you're doing now?
Yes, I think because where I've ended up now, what I'm doing is I'm fulfilled every day. I don't have work-life balance. I've got just life, and if I had to live every single day of my life like I'm living currently now, for a week, for 1 week left of my life, I would be pretty happy. I feel fulfilled, and I feel like I've gone through a lot that was self-inflicted. No one else did it to me. I did it to myself. And coming through that and understanding that I did that, and then by owning that I did that, I could change it, and I did change it to create a life that I actually want. Going against societal norms of, a coach, like my friends, like, Troy, you're a network and property and finance. Like, what are you doing coaching? Like, okay, well, how's your job? You enjoying your day? I'm loving my day, and I'm doing the best of it I've ever done. So it's phenomenal, and I'm very grateful for what I've been through, and that I'm still alive to experience it. That's what I'm grateful about as well. Yeah.
The coach is just such a generalized term for people that do all sorts of things with their clients, all sorts of really interesting stuff. And I was chatting to my husband the other day because I get these random thoughts. I get a lot of random thoughts around the title and the status. And when we're quite young, or it can happen when we're older as well, and when you ask someone about this person that they've met in their life, so an intimate partner, and the first thing they tell you is, oh, they're a chef, they're in finance, they're in real estate, they're a doctor, they're a lawyer. And that's what actually attracts them, amongst other things. But then in the work I do, and I think we all know people like this, is that there are so many people in these high status jobs or perceived high status jobs who are absolutely miserable. So you can be the chef that's happy, you can be the lawyer who's really happy, but it's not the job that actually gives you the happiness and the joy in life.
100% not. And if that person's aligned with that job, I know plenty of people in finance and and accounting and law who love their jobs because they're aligned with it. But when you go after for the title or the label of it, it doesn't stack up all the time, and those are the people that are unhappy in it. And it's like those professions are amazing. They're needed, and we need them, right? And I love those people because they're my clients as well, right? So, but when you're going after for the title or that label, like you said, like, oh, I'm with this guy, well, he's in finance. No, his name is fucking John or whatever it is. He's a great guy. Who cares what he does? Like, his identity. Like, and we've been taught this this identity is so important. Like, you've got to, oh, well, John, he's an actuarial scientist. Oh, well, you've made it now. Really? Okay. What if John's a really bad human being?
Yes. Gosh, my parents were like, you should become an actress. They're like the highest paid and whatever. And I'm like, okay. What is it? Just numbers? Anyway, I'm so glad I didn't go down that pathway. So when you work with your clients, do you take them through a near-death experience? Not a near-death experience, but like, I'll let you elaborate.
No, so I'll do something with them where, as I go through the process with them, I'll figure out what they are fearful about, and we'll work on those fears. But there'll be something that's like, oh yeah, I'm scared, and then I'll integrate that into the process of. It'll be something like, I don't know, like, jumping through a river or through a gorge, right, or going up into a plane and doing flips in an acrobatic, or going in a F1 car, or something that's really adrenaline seeking, that is on the edge of, if something goes wrong here, I could end it. Or it might be something a little bit deeper, which I'm still working on now, that I'm not too sure I should say. or I don't actually have anything that's that aggressive yet, but it's not going to be anything like things like I won't do is like something like skydiving in South Africa, maybe somewhere else, just because I don't think it's that safe.
There's loads of skydiving here in New Zealand. You should bring your clients over here.
I know. Maybe I will. I think I definitely will. But there's a lot of stuff like beautiful, like mountains, like abseiling or whatever we could do. Like so many like adventurous things. So there'll be something that's definitely scary. So they get to that point of fear and they go, okay, cool, it's not that scary. Yeah. Once you break that fear down, but it'll be specific to them. It'll be customized to their fears in order to break through that.
Yeah, my husband's a mountain guide, so he takes people into the high mountains. And a question that I know he asks, and I sometimes get to meet his clients and we have these in-depth conversations, is why do you want to climb a mountain? And I'm sure there are a lot of people who hire other mountain guides who are just at this midlife crisis. They've got everything, but they want more, and then they want to feel on the edge of death. So they want to push those barriers. And what I love is that he facilitates that journey, and it's not about just climbing the peak and bagging that. It's the journey and overcoming those fears. And I think he started off and he was actually quite scared of heights, and now he does lots of solo climbs and all this kind of stuff. So I think it is fascinating to get into the minds of those kind of people, and the clients who want to do those kind of activities is like, why do you want to do it? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to feel?
What's the intention behind it? Like, what's really going on? And you get deep, like this. Ask yourself this question: what's the intention behind anything that you're doing? And you'll start to dig so deep into yourself, and into like it's such a powerful question. It seems simple, but when you sort of think about it, and you become, and then you have deeper conversations, and you have more meaningful relationships, which is the most important thing. Yeah. Ask people real questions. How's the weather? No. Like, what's really going on? Like, why did you do that? Like, what are you thinking about? What are you feeling? I mean, how many people ask, like, how are you feeling? How are you? So like generic progression. How are you actually feeling? And like ask people that, and they get confused. They're like, what do you mean? How am I feeling? I'm like, fucking great. Are you? And then you get into a deeper conversation, more meaningful.
Yeah, I was thinking of that the other day as well, as one of those random thoughts that came into my mind, is how many people don't answer when you say, how are you? And I'm like, I am actually asking you because I am genuinely interested in how you are. Yeah. So I'll go and I'll ask it again, and sometimes a third time. I'm like, hey, I've just asked you, how are you? You're ignoring me. I want to know what you're up to.
It's unconscious. They've heard it 1,000 times. They're like, okay, cool, whatever. Or people reply to you. Or what I do is I don't even ask them. They go, how are you? And then I say, good. And then they say, oh, me too. But you didn't ask them how they were, just to see what happens.
Yes, yeah. And that's a big thing for me, is pulling people up at an appropriate time when they say good, and I'm like, are you really good? What's really going on?
Yeah,
And then
for
they
sure.
cry. So you came from a place of suicidal thoughts. If there's anything else that you want to touch on, let me know. But what would your advice be to someone who might be listening to this, who knows that they're getting glimpses of these thoughts?
I would say literally reach out to someone close to you, because they will love you and they don't want you to go, right? And they will miss you. So when I told my family that, they couldn't believe it. I told my fiance that, like, do you know what, like, how would they feel? So think about them, and it's not always like, it's not a selfish thing. Is to understand that there is someone there that loves you, even though you might think that they don't. Because I didn't think that. I didn't think anyone loved me. I think people hated me and I was a burden. But it's not true. When you reach out to someone and just discuss it with them and spend a night with that person, whatever, just tell them everything that's going on. Open up, be vulnerable, because vulnerability is courage, as everyone knows now from Brené Brown, the vulnerability researcher. And she's changed it. I mean, it's a whole different sense, which talks about, but being open and just asking for help. I would 100% say that, and be okay with it, and know that people do love you.
And what kind of clients do you work with exactly, or is it just a whole range?
I work with, I don't really have a real niche per se in industry. That's why I say industry leaders. So there's people that are really, really bored and no, probably like seriously, they've achieved so much, and they're on this treadmill. They're doing the same thing over and over again, right? And then they try and do something else, but they're not aligned with who they actually are. So they bored and stuff's falling apart and their lives, and it's just the illusion. They know what they want, but they've been doing something in order to prove themselves to other people, or based on the expectations of other people. And once they realize that illusion is fake, they sort of create, and they've got the potential to create. They've got the drive and desire to create because they've done it before. So specifically, those types of people that have created amazing accomplishments, be whatever that is, and they're just feeling a bit sort of stuck. I mean, they say, I mean, I hate the word stuck, but they use it, right?
Yeah. Something's
I'm just feeling
for them.
What's it to do now? Like, where do I go? I'm a bit bored. Like, what's next? Like, can I recreate this? Like, yes, you can. And helping them just shift that illusion, and then bam, because they've got the design inside of them. So people that are highly driven, anomalistic, and they outliers, like they think differently, and they've got the balls to think differently.
Great. And I think there's a lot of guilt around boredom when people have success already.
For sure, because they're like, well, how can I be bored? Like, I've done so well, and everyone else is working their asses off, and I'm not. Like, what's going on? So for sure, 100%. And once you heal that guilt, they can move forward. It's all everything goes back to emotions. There's no problem in the world unless it's all emotions. What is it? 90% or 95% of diseases that doctors, MDs, physicians agree with is caused by stress. Because stress is just an emotion, and emotion is a chemical in your body. It gets stuck and trapped.
Yeah.
And it causes inflammation. Like, you know this so well, but that's what an emotion is, guys. It's a chemical that's causing inflammation in your body, that's causing you to be in fight or flight the whole time. So your growth and repair systems can't work. Your immune system is shut down, and people are getting sick. Fear causes illness.
Yeah, I often say to people, if you can work through the emotional stuff, the really hard stuff, 95% of things will go away, and then you'll be left with the 5% that you actually know that you need to treat with medications, with supplements, or intervention like surgery. But always do.
And that message needs to go more mainstream somehow. I don't know how, but once people realize that, I mean, their lives will be so much easier, and they'll spend so much less money on the drugs that they're using, because they figure out how to use their emotions. That's why I don't teach emotional agility or emotional intelligence at school.
Yeah.
Because
How to get it
Yeah.
mainstream is, I think, just us having conversations. And for those of you listening, if this resonated with you, is to make sure you share it. How can people find you, Troy McTeer?
Or you can just find me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm on there at Troy McTeer, same as my name on both, on LinkedIn at Troy McTeer. And you can email me at hi@troymcteer.com. That's probably the best way to get hold of me.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure I pop those links in the notes. And just one last thing, if you can share, as a male in this space, because I do think we need more men speaking about this. So I'm very grateful that you came on and shared. We had a really great conversation. What would you say to the men out there who are struggling?
About who's struggling with this addiction, drinking, not even addiction, maybe just using recreationally. I would say the truth. If you are overindulging in alcohol and cocaine or any drug, there's pain that you are numbing. And that's the truth. Like, what pain are you numbing? Discover that, and then figure out what the intention is behind why you're drinking or why you're using drugs. If the intention is pure, like I never had a problem with drinking, I had a problem with my intention. My intention was numbing. So if your intention is to have a good time and you have a drink every now and then, cool. But if you're numbing and it's causing you pain and you're getting and you're causing yourself anxiety, get honest with yourself and figure out what that pain is. It might be something from childhood. It might be something from your ex-girlfriend or your boss, right? Or how you're being treated. Then speak truth to that person and sort it out. Speak truth to yourself first and take noble responsibility for your life and know that everything is the way it is because of you, no one else.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Troy. I really appreciate you sharing your story and some tips and advice that will hopefully resonate with some people out there.
Thank you so much. It's been so nice spending time with you.
If you're listening to the podcast live, next week on March the 2nd, 2021, my Release 6-week course is starting. And I'm super excited because I've got over 40 people who have signed up to take this mind-body connection work a level deeper. I'm going to be teaching you how to process your emotions rather than cope with them. And there's a lot of nuances to this. Many people will have questions of how far they can go with this work, and you need the right support so that you can do this in a safe and effective way. I'm also going to be teaching about how you can work out what emotions might actually need to be processed. So interweaving Eastern philosophy. And this is about learning how to read your body. So based on the physical dysfunctions you might have with pain, discomfort, injury, illness, or disease, we can tell what emotions might be stuck in the body. And not only physical dysfunctions, because some of you may not have any pain or injury, it can also be around the personalities that you exhibit or the behavioral dysfunctions that you play out in life. They can all indicate where and what emotions might actually be stored in your body that you need to process. Then I talk about doshas, which is about your true nature, your constitution, your personality type, and how your environment and lifestyle can support you. Now, the important thing with this work is that it's all interweaved. We can't just segment out Ayurvedic doshas, the chakra system, and learning how to process your emotions. And that's where I'm super excited to work with a group and answer your questions and show you how you can really interweave this work in a practical way. I have loved the feedback from my really honest social media posts out there. They're the patterns that I see in several of the people that I work with, and it's nice to hear that you can relate to it. I love those messages, so please keep them coming. And I really love, for those of you who have chosen not to jump on the course, for various reasons, I have loved that you have gotten so much out of watching the replay or being live at the masterclass that I held, and just reminded of how powerful this process is and all the funny things that are shifting and all of the positive shifts that you are noticing in your body. And thank you to those of you who have allowed me to screenshot anonymously your messages and put them out there, because I know that other people are learning so much from this work. So I'm really on a mission to get more people talking about this openly I've also had a lot of messages of people saying, gosh, I'm so glad people are talking about this emotional work. And, it's something that I think a lot of people have felt quite awkward about. So I think if we can all get a little bit more comfortable, then that would be amazing, because this message really needs to spread further. So it's not too late to join the release course if you feel called to. Maybe it's the first time you're hearing about it. If it is, head to courses.theartoflisteningtoyobody.com/release. You'll get the masterclass replay on there and all of the information about how this course is going to run. And I really cannot wait for what's going to happen starting next week. Thanks for learning with me on the Art of Listening to Your Body podcast. If you like what you've heard, I would love if you could rate, review, and share with your friends. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is The Art of Listening to Your Body. You can join my free Facebook group where I go live regularly to teach you about different conditions and the deeper underlying emotions at play.